Hello, everyone. My name is Paul, and welcome to the short-term rentals webinar on the one key to unlocking loyalty in the vacation rental industry, sponsored by Vrbo, part of Expedia Group. I'm the editor of short-term rentals here at International Hospitality Media, and I'm going to be the host for today's session. And before we begin, let's introduce our webinar sponsor for today. Check out this video from Vrbo.
If you host a holiday home, but you're having a hard time finding guests, then list on Vrbo. Sit back and attract repeat guests with one key. A rewards program you won't find on any other platform. Sounds pretty rewarding.
So a big thank you to Vrbo and Expedia Group for their support and collaboration for this webinar. Let's get right ahead and introduce our fantastic speaker lineup for today. So I'm going to hand over. Tim, please introduce yourself.
Hey folks, I'm Tim Rosolio, VP of Vacation Rental Partnerships for Expedia Group. And a lot of people ask me, well, what does that mean? It generally means that if Vrbo or Fawo or STRz or Abertel or Expedia or Hotels.com have vacation rentals that they're trying to sell, I'm the person that stocks the shelves. And we stock the shelves in a variety of ways. We stock them by acquiring net new properties, whether they're from owners or professional property managers. And then additionally, we have a team of roughly 250 dedicated account managers. That sole job is to work with existing owners and property managers to help them be successful.
Thank you, Tim. We'll also be hearing about the One Key UK launch very soon, so stay tuned for that. Next up, we'll let Merilee introduce herself, please.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm Merilee Karr, founder and CEO of the UnderTheDoormat Group. And we span all parts of the vertical within short-term rentals, from our Vive brand, which is part of our merger back in December, which covers the B2C market, so individual owners, and we do everything from operating to insuring to working with owners on their properties. And also, of course, a guest-facing brand. Our Hosperia platform, which is our SaaS and SaaS Plus service, where we provide PMS and integrated enterprise technology to both property management companies as well as institutional real estate companies to operate their portfolios of short-term rentals. And finally, STRz, which we operate on behalf of the industry, which helps get access to the GDS and corporate bookings through those channels for professional short-term rental companies. So that's a little bit about us in the group, and really excited to be here to talk about loyalty and how that plays a huge role in our industry, and I think an increasingly important role in the future.
Absolutely. That's plenty we're going to be discussing later. So thank you, Merilee, for joining us. And last but by no means least, we have Ben.
Thanks, Paul. Ben Wolff. I'm the co-founder and creator of Onera, which is an upscale unique stays brand. Might also be thought of as a treehouse hotel. I'm also the co-founder and CEO of Oasi, which is a full-service management and marketing firm for unique stays and experiential hotels. In a prior life, I also managed a couple 100-unit short-term rental portfolio. So I've been around the block a bit, and yeah, excited to talk more about loyalty rewards points and programs, because it's been something that's been really lacking in vacation rentals and even kind of independent non-branded hotels more broadly. So happy to chat about it.
So thank you, Ben. Thank you to all of our panel, and looking forward to hearing your insights throughout the next hour. So some webinar guidelines for today. All of the details are going to be posted in the chat, so please do go there if you have any questions that you want to ask our panelists at any point. We're going to have a panel discussion leading into audience questions today, and then a recording will be sent round to everyone within the next 48 hours. And before we begin, we covered Expedia Group's launch of its flexible loyalty and rewards program, OneKey, last year in the US initially, while the group also announced that it will launch 2 new co-branded credit cards in the US with Wells Fargo and MasterCard. And of course, yesterday, also the exciting news was announced that OneKey was expanding into the UK. So we'll be hearing from Tim very shortly on that and the future of loyalty. Expedia Group itself has also launched partnerships with Alaska Airlines to launch Stays by Alaska Vacations, a platform for exclusive deals on vacation rentals and hotels in the US, and with Air Miles, a group of loyalty programs available in Canada, the Netherlands, and the Middle East. And finally, in a busy year for the company, Ariane Gorin was announced as the group's new CEO earlier this year, and she also featured in our IHM's 2025 Ones to Watch in Travel, Hospitality and Real Estate. All of the links to those stories are being posted in the chat for you now. So let's dig a little bit more into OneKey. As we mentioned, OneKey was launched in the UK only yesterday, as we posted on short-term rentals. And Tim, where better to start? Please just give us a little insight into what OneKey is for those tuning in today who perhaps need a few more details.
Happy to do it. So OneKey is our loyalty program across all of Expedia Group. So that means it is a loyalty program where you can earn points, or what we call OneKey Cash, and burn points, or OneKey Cash, across our 3 major brands. So that's Expedia, Hotels.com, and Vrbo. And within Vrbo, that's a Vrbo stack, but includes a variety of brands, whether that's Vrbo or Abertel, Veo Direct, Stays, Book a Batch in New Zealand, sort of all of the traditional legacy vacation rental sites. And it's an opportunity for travelers to actually participate in earning and burning these points across categories and across brands, which is a pretty tremendous opportunity for us as a company that's largely been built via M&A across a variety of brands. And some of those brands may have had their own independent loyalty programs, but this is a way that we can really bring it all together and manage it as a portfolio of brands and a suite of brands. Probably the thing that I'm most excited about with respect to it, because of my job, is that it's really the first loyalty program at scale that's available for the short-term rental category. And what often comes back to me when I think about that is when I was in consulting for the first 10 years of my career, I was a Bonvoy or Starwood, I guess at the time, triple executive platinum. I think there was literally a person I could call that would make the bookings for me, and that was a cool service. And I stayed at a hotel, 50 weeks a year. And then when it came time to burn those points, the last place I wanted to be was another hotel. So at that time, if there was an option to burn those points to stay at a place where I would have space and a kitchen and all of the comforts of a home, I certainly would have booked a vacation rental. So I think it's a big step change in terms of bringing vacation rentals into the loyalty game. So we're really excited about it based on the progress that we've seen in America, and we're have a high degree of confidence that it's going to bring VR sort of into the loyalty ecosystem, and for partners to deliver them a lot of new travelers in the UK.
Excellent. And you talk there about OneKey, and we know it's this comprehensive travel rewards program, and you're uniting Expedia and Hotels.com, so more on the hotel side with the short-term rental side. We know as well about the OneKey Cash, and you've also got the member benefits there. So I wonder, you talked a little bit there about loyalty, but what does it mean personally to you if you define loyalty now? And this is supposed to be the biggest loyalty scheme launch of the company's kind.
Yeah, I think to me, loyalty is it's an offering that makes you want to come back. And historically, there are major hotel brands that have tried to do this well. I don't believe that an OTA has done it with the depth and breadth that we have. And I think that's going to provide value to travelers, and it's also going to add value to a lot of entrepreneurial, non-branded hospitality providers, whether that's a short-term rental operator or somebody like Ben that runs more sort of boutique independent hotels that didn't used to get to participate in a loyalty scheme.
Thank you very much, Tim. Merilee, I'll turn to you now, and really the same question. You've got this brand that's been very well known now for a number of years in UnderTheDoormat Group, but you've also, that's now the umbrella company for Expedia and Vive and Trusted Stays. What does loyalty mean to you personally?
I mean, look, on a personal level, I think loyalty is when you get rewarded for coming back again and again to a certain brand. And I think all of us have examples in our lives of companies that we feel loyalty to and that we go back again and again. Obviously, you know, the real test is that not only do you come back yourself, but you also become an advocate for that company. You're recommending them to others. And therefore, you're someone who actually is a kind of ambassador for a particular brand. And I think in the vacation rental industry and short-term rental industry, whatever we want to call it, I think one of the challenges that we've had is that it is quite a fragmented industry. I think Skips talked about there being 120,000 different operators of short-term rentals around the world. And, you know, while the big hotel companies can do that at scale, because of course they're global, they've got, you know, multi-million-pound budgets, all these types of things. What it's meant is that most operators, and I count UnderTheDoormat and Vive in that space, have tended to drive repeat visitors in different ways. So making sure they understand what's different about you than anyone else they might find on one of the OTAs, providing maybe an early check-in, providing a nice welcome pack, you know, some extra perks so that if somebody comes back to you again and again, that they feel special. And I think that is ultimately the thing, that a customer feels special and feels valued. But I think one of the big challenges that we've always had as an industry is that there is no access to the kind of big loyalty schemes that the hotels have had, simply because we don't actually have the companies of that scale in our sector yet. I would argue all of us are hoping that will change over time. But I think, therefore, there is a massive opportunity with One Key that actually our industry can tap into loyalty, not just of short-term rentals or of a particular brand, because let's be honest, as much as I would love it, not every customer wants to come back to London and Paris and Manchester and Leeds and the places that we operate. They might next time want to go to Bangkok or Buenos Aires or somewhere else. And so as a partner that works with Expedia and other OTAs, I think if we're able to tap into the fact that hotel customers are spending lots of money in hotels and then spending their money and choosing our properties, I think that's a massive win. And, you know, I would probably argue that that Vrbo, as part of this, and the vacation rental industry as part of this, are probably net going to be the beneficiaries of these types of programs. And I think that is, for us as an industry, incredibly exciting. And I think incredibly exciting for partners of Vrbo to see what that brings in terms of guests who come back to our properties, or new guests who try our properties who may never have done it if it weren't for that incentive to try something new and different.
And you talk about the fragmentation within the industry. Of course, in some ways, now you're responsible for some of the consolidation happening within the industry, acquiring the property management company, but you've also got Trusted Stay with the booking platform, and Hospira as a software as a service solution. So as your branch, and you've also just partnered with Alliance, a customer experience tech platform. I guess as you're sort of straddling different real estate models, has it maybe allowed you to look differently at loyalty in the short-term rental space?
Well, look, I think for me, when you look across all the different areas of the short-term rental ecosystem, I think what we want to be able to do, in particular, if I think about with Hosperia, for example, whenever a Hosperia customer is working with us and using our technology, we want to make sure that they're connected into the best programs and the best options in the world. And so, when One Key was first announced in Vegas, I think this was actually last year, that for me was really exciting because, there are lots of individual owners or small property management companies that maybe don't distribute across all the channels. And I see our role as being able to help educate property management companies and also real estate companies who are increasingly doing flexible and short-term rentals about the benefits that different OTAs provide. And look, I can certainly say that I believe this is genuinely a unique proposition that Vrbo and Expedia have brought to the market, and genuinely something that will help to drive revenues to our Hosperia customers. So for me, that's incredibly exciting because what we want to be able to do is be that partner that connects our end customers, whether that's a real estate company or a property management company, or indeed branded residences from hotels, into the short-term rental ecosystem, but into also more than just, I post on a couple of OTAs, but actually help them understand how they get the most value out of the OTAs they work with, and how they can build things like loyalty so that people want to come back to their properties again and again. And also hopefully entice by great reviews and all these things, new customers in through programs like One Key.
Thank you, Merilee. And I think it was last July that One Key was officially announced in the States. So even more exciting now that it's expanding into the UK. Thank you, Merilee. I'll head to Ben next, because Ben, we heard in your introduction that you've got these two very distinct brands, the Onera, which is the upscale treehouse resort brand, and also our Oasi, the marketing management and development firm, and you're sort of specializing in unique stays there. I'm wondering, you've heard from Tim and Merilee, what does loyalty mean specifically to you, and how does it apply to your businesses?
Yeah, so I mean, I could just touch a little bit on what it means to me as a consumer. I, like Tim, started off my professional career as a consultant, so I was in in hotels, I don't know, probably half the year, if not more. And so I had the highest status with, what was Starwood at the time, now Marriott Bonvoy. Was very loyal because when you stayed that much, you could achieve a high status and get a bunch of perks. And that was great. But when I left the consulting world, I lost that pretty quick. And today, what I care about the most as a consumer, which I do think One Key is tapping into quite well. And there's other credit card loyalty or, credit card rewards points that also tap into it. And that is the breadth of where I can use my points. So I don't want to just be tied to having to stay at like a Marriott Bonvoy property or a Hilton property or something like that. I'd like to be able to stay in a super unique vacation rental, like Bolt Farm Treehouse or the Cliffs at Hocking Hills, or a super cool independent boutique hotel that I might not want to pay their, if it's a luxury property like Amangiri or Post Ranch Inn or something like that, I might not want to pay their sometimes exorbitant nightly rate. But if I have points to burn, I'd love to be able to use them on an experience like that. And that it kind of ties into how I think about this as an operator as well. So one of the main benefits that I see in loyalty rewards programs for properties like Onera and other experiential properties that Oasi manages is exposing ourselves to a new audience, to somebody that might otherwise not know about Onera, or one of our other properties, or might not, want to pay our rates, but would be interested in experiencing if they have points to use to do so. Or, they've stayed with us a few times, they'd love to come back, and being able to use points that they've earned from staying at hotels, booking flights, staying at other vacation rentals is really valuable as another channel for us to bring in bookings. And I've been talking to some people that are pretty smart in the loyalty reward space, kind of, coming into this webinar, wanting to think and learn more about it. One of the cool things I've heard on the horizon from another kind of stealth startup in the space is around actually identifying lookalike audiences that properties like ours can market to. And I thought that's fascinating. I don't know if, OneKey has any plans around that, but I thought that was definitely interesting and something that would be super valuable to us. And the one other thing I would say that me and Tim talked about at Skift, what I want to avoid at Onera and other properties that we have is guests feeling like they are either higher class or second class citizens, and it feeling like a transactional relationship. Like when people come to Onera, a lot of times it's for a proposal or a honeymoon, or it's for a big event, a birthday typically, and celebratory, and we want everybody to feel like gold, right? Feel like a platinum member. So if we can do it in a way that our guests are feeling like they're getting rewards and getting benefit from a loyalty rewards program, or being able to use those points at Onera without it feeling overly transactional or like they're a second class citizen if they're not, the highest tier of member, those would kind of be my highest priorities as an operator.
Thank you, Ben. Lots to take in there, and maybe Tim will be able to answer an element of a question about that. But Tim, I will head to you next. You've heard the fellow speakers there. Ultimately, why is this the right time to be having this conversation? Why should everyone be so concerned with loyalty in the vacation rental space?
I think I'd answer that actually by actually maybe piggybacking on a couple things that Ben said. So there's this stat that we heard that actually was a good bit of the inspiration surrounding OneKey, which was that 80% of travelers didn't get any sort of rewards for their travel. And the reason why a lot of times was because a lot of people that were getting the massive rewards were, recovering consultants like me and Ben, that like you needed to be like the power user to actually really have it be worth your while. And one of the benefits of OneKey is actually with relatively few what we call trip elements, you can ratchet up your status relatively quickly to really start to earn a lot more value across all the things that we offer, whether it's hotels, vacation rentals, flights, cruises, rental cars, etc. So I think we're really filling in some of that 80%. I think that's a tremendous opportunity. The other thing that I think would be important, that again is backing off one of Ben's points, is really the whole like personalization piece and identification of how do we provide people what they want. One of the important things about OneKey is in order to earn the points, you have to be a OneKey member and you have to log in. And I think there's like everything we've been talking about, earning, burning, there's value in that, but there perhaps could be even more value for us in the notion of it's actually like, all right, so Ben has a family. I know that Ben is a OneKey member. Ben's booked a variety of family-oriented vacation rentals in the past. And maybe I know that Ben has a history of taking his family from Austin, Texas to Europe for a summer vacation. Well, like, I think the opportunity for us is to use all that data to show Ben Merilee's properties in the UK. And Merilee's properties might have shown up for a traveler that we didn't know anything about. But when I know all of those things about Ben, like I'm going to put Merilee's properties front and center, which should be a benefit for the entire ecosystem.
Thank you, Tim. Merilee, I'll direct the next question to you, but I'll shift it slightly. Again, why should we be having this conversation around loyalty? And piggybacking again, I think on what you said, why haven't we quite solved that loyalty question in the industry just yet?
Well, look, as I said before, I think one of the challenges in the industry has been that in some ways we needed a player like Expedia to help solve it at scale, because, you know, to Ben's earlier point, you know, you might be traveling for work and staying in certain types of properties, but that isn't necessarily then the place you want to spend your points later on. And so equally, you know, as a traveler, you might, you know, travel to Paris or travel to London for some long weekends, or you might do a week-long family holiday, but then you might actually want to use those points for something different. And so I think that breadth of opportunity to spend points and to acquire points is something that we as an industry have always struggled with. So that's why I think we've always chosen to do, you know, much more specific things like offering something to a guest in stay, those types of opportunities, so that people would come back and book direct. And I don't think that will change. I think you will continue to have operators who want to take those direct bookings, and for customers who want to repeatedly go back to the same locations or a small handful of locations, that can work really, really well. But most customers want that breadth of choice. And so I think what's timely about this in the industry is actually where the industry is as a whole. And I think all of us in the industry at the moment recognize that, you know, obviously there were the COVID years. Let's just all forget about those. We would love to pretend that they never happened. But then you've got the post-COVID world. And I think we're now back into a little bit more of a steady state where we're seeing, you know, normal rates of growth. We're seeing more stabilized ADRs. And so I think we've all got to get smarter about how we're attracting the best customers, smarter about how we're getting our customers to come back again and again, and also smarter about how we distribute, where we distribute, and how we make sure that where we are partnering with companies like Vrbo, that we are getting the best value out of that. And so I think that's where now having loyalty, which goes across not just vacation rentals, and something which would be industry specific, and actually having a program and having loyalty be something which encapsulates everything to do with travel is really exciting, because I think for us as an industry, it means that hopefully we're going to be tapping into new guests that haven't tried vacation rental before. We're going to be tapping into high value guests who spend a lot of money, who are then happy to pay higher ADRs and all these types of things for some of our peak seasons. And so all of that helps us as operators and technology providers to drive the revenues into vacation rentals that we all want to achieve. And so I think now that we are back in that stable world, there couldn't be a better time for us to be talking about loyalty as one of those key levers that's going to help us drive the incremental revenues that every single one of us want to do as business owners.
Thank you for that, Merilee. Ben, would you agree with what you've heard from your fellow panelists, and also the conversations that you've had with property managers in the unique stay space?
Yeah, I mean, I would, by and large, like I definitely agree that there's always going to be a drive to try to push guests direct, and we do quite a bit of that, as Merilee was pointing out. But there's definitely a big advantage, exposure advantage, right, to working with OTAs and having some of these loyalty rewards programs to have a guest get into our funnel that otherwise wouldn't. One other piece that I feel like we haven't really touched on yet, which my limited knowledge seems like one key is somewhat addressing. I know on the consumer side, kind of transparency of value around points was always something that was important. And depending on the program you were in, it could be very hard to discern the value, because it could be wildly different at one, Marriott property or another, just to take that example. And then the same kind of, I guess, concern on the operator side, right? I don't want to, especially at a 12 unit or, a single vacation rental property, I don't want to take a drastically discounted rate, some rack rate, that Marriott has determined I have to take when their points member books with them. And it seems like, with One Key Cash, it's kind of like 1-to-1, which usually there is some, at minimum, confusing to probably most conversion ratio. And so I think making that very straightforward, both for the guest and the operator, there's certainly value in that.
Thank you, Ben. Tim, do you want to address some of those points?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think what Ben is saying was exactly our calculus, and that was, a dollar is a One Key Cash dollar, or a pound is a One Key Cash pound. Make it simple. And what that also means for the traveler is, I think, anybody who's ever participated in a loyalty scheme before knows that something that brands tend to do when it isn't that way is you can create sort of inflationary environments to make points less valuable. And something like this makes it a lot more straightforward, so that that will not happen. The other thing worth noting, I mean, Merilee and Ben both mentioned the notion of direct bookings. And in general, we think of, our value proposition is about helping people get direct bookings, because what we provide you isn't just a booking, but we provide you a traveler that you can put in your CRM and you can remarket to. That's part of the value. Now, along with that, of course, we're going to remarket to them too. We're a commercial enterprise, and we're going to market to them too. And, transparently, it's my hope they book with Expedia rather than they book with the underlying partner. But we do believe that's part of the value proposition. And travelers are gonna vote with their feet based upon the value that they see. So it's I think I would almost describe it as a handshake note of friction, that it's like, for repeat bookings, we're both going to try to get them, and whoever can provide the best offering will win that that additional repeat booking.
Thank you, Tim. I should say to our audience, if you've got any questions for Tim, for Merilee, for Ben, please do pop them in the chat, and we'll have time in the Q&A section of this webinar to answer those. Going back to you, Tim, actually, how do you think the vacation rental industry can actually benefit from travelers who are loyal to this category? Do you think people are loyal to this category in a different way than they are to hotels or other segments?
I think it's something that's evolving, right? I think that the sheer awareness of vacation rental bookings has grown so dramatically over the past decade, and in particular, probably the past 5 years, when a lot of people tried it for the first time during the pandemic. And as such, I think what you're hearing a lot of is you're hearing a lot less of the term alternative accommodation. Like, people stay at short-term rentals all the time. I think a lot of the evolution for our category will be, still so many of the bookings are for the annual ski trip, the annual week-long beach bash. I think that the opportunity for us is actually to additionally get some of those quick weekend stays. Like, properties like Ben's are perfect for that, or properties like Merilee are perfect for that, for people that actually live in continental Europe and want to just pop over to the UK for a quick weekend in some of her amazing destinations. So I think that's where a lot of the opportunity is, and it's really starting to blend together more. Sorry about that. And then, additionally, another thing that's a big part of the value, I think, of what we've really developed here, because people are aware of all of the opportunities that do exist, is you're seeing a lot of people actually trying vacation rentals more that are traditionally hotel buyers. One of the insights that we had from the US was 25% of the people that use their one key cache on Vrbo had never been to Vrbo before. So these are people that were booking on hotels.com and Expedia, say, I have this money, let's try something new. And they're trying vacation rentals for the first time. So that should be a nice tailwind of demand for our partners.
Thank you, Tim. Merilee, you look at the wider hospitality landscape and you'll see more hotel brands, for example, launching loyalty schemes. What was quite interesting actually, but Hyatt last year was announcing the launch of a short-term rental platform that we're waiting to hear more about. But from your perspective, how can the short-term rental industry again benefit from that loyalty to those travelers who want to specifically stay in short-term rentals?
Well, I mean, look, I think when you talk about hotels and you talk about the ecosystem more broadly, I think one of the things that we're seeing at the moment is a bit more of a blending. So, you know, I think Ben's brands also talk to that a little bit. And if I even think about within our own portfolio, we work with individual owners of high-end properties. We work with the likes of Canary Wharf Group and Cadogan Estates on whole buildings and larger properties. And increasingly on the tech side with Hosperia, we're working with institutional real estate, whether that's multifamily and build to rent, or indeed branded residences of hotels. And so across, you know, between hotels and residential real estate, I think you're seeing that kind of blending, convergence, etc. And so what I think that means for consumers is that, you know, it isn't always going to be pigeonholed into this is a vacation rental, this is a short-term rental, or this is a hotel. There's going to be every option in the middle that's available to people. And I think, you know, the challenge for all of us is how to make the product visible where the customers want to find it. And of course, the more that customers change in and out of different categories seamlessly, the more that we want to make sure that they have a great experience, that they understand the differences of the products that they book. We all know what it's like if somebody thinks they booked a hotel and all of a sudden they turn up to a vacation rental and, you know, the owner lives there part of the time. It's a completely different experience. And so I think it is all about how you expectation set so that customers have a fantastic experience. But I think, as Tim said, what we see is more and more customers crossing these borders and sampling different products. And again, if we're able to offer, you know, points and rewards to people who are trying new things, I think the more that they're going to be likely to come back again. I actually also love, there was a piece of research Goldman Sachs did a few years back that once people try short-term and vacation rentals, it becomes their preference. And so there's something very powerful about the stats that Tim's talking about, where we're getting new customers trying vacation rentals all the time. And so I think, you know, as an industry, that's a huge opportunity because today, according to Eurostat, there's about 20% of stays in Europe are in vacation and short-term rentals. Well, I would love for that one day to be 30% or 50%. And that as travel grows, our category grows faster than other categories. And I think there's certainly an opportunity working all together within the ecosystem, OTAs, through loyalty schemes, and all the amazing companies that there are in our industry to be growing that overall, you know, market share within the accommodation space, so that more people get to experience more destinations and do it in a way that gives them all the choices of product that they want.
Thank you for that, Merilee. Ben, anything you'd like to add there? What do you see as the opportunities for loyalty or for branded loyalty in the vacation rental space?
Yeah, so I'd like to touch and expand upon a little bit what Merilee was talking about. I mean, and it's not necessarily just about loyalty, but more broadly, I think that this like vacation rental and hotel is a continuum, and it's not, you know, one or the other. I mean, particularly with our properties, we, you know, we've been called an STR community, we've been called an experiential hotel. I get, you know, brought in for hotel conferences, for STR ones, and it's for me, it's like, how do we bring the best of both of those worlds together? Because I think the knock on vacation rentals is speed of service. If something goes wrong, somebody there to help you. But you can run an STR even if it's individual homes. And for us, it's easier because we have multiple units on one property. You can run your ship tight enough that you can almost give that hotel-like experience when it comes to service. And then on the hotel side, can we get something more unique, more experiential, more space, you know, maybe a kitchen? So it's like there's this real blending, and what is the difference? Because, you know, you could say, okay, it's separate units, but no, there's, you know, Four Seasons or you know, Ritz's in you know, the Caribbean and islands that are separate casitas. So like that's still a hotel. So I think that there's a lot of unnecessary kind of separating of the two. And I certainly agree with, as a consumer, if I want to, you know, if I'm looking to burn points, I want to stay in the coolest, most experiential, exciting stay that I can wherever I'm going. Or maybe even that stay is going to dictate where I'm going, which I think is happening more and more. Like, oh, I want to stay, you know, in this overwater villa, so I'm going to go to the Maldives. Or I want to stay in this treehouse, so I'm going to go to Fredericksburg. So yeah, I mean, it's just about the more I can use my points to stay wherever I want to go, the more loyal I'm going to be to that program and that ecosystem, which is, you know, why I think Expedia has a leg up in that department, right? Just because there's such a diverse offering between Expedia and Vrbo of where you can stay versus, you know, some other OTAs are a little more pigeonholed, I would say, into one category or another.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, Ben, because I realized that earlier in the panel, I referred to you as a boutique hotel operator. And then I thought to myself, well, what does Ben think? Are you a boutique hotel operator? Or are you a short-term rental operator? Or are you both? Or does it depend on which panel you're on?
It depends. I'm a stays operator. I'm an experiential stays. And if you notice, like I say unique stays as my Twitter handle, and we talk about this a lot as unique stays, because I think that the differentiation between STR and hotel is a little bit like overblown, and it's becoming more melded together.
Yeah, whatever it is, it's good stuff.
Yeah.
For anybody that's in the audience here, check out Onera. This is not like the rickety treehouse. This is pretty nice stuff. So worth checking out.
Thank you, Ben, and Tim as well. A nice little shout out there for Onera. A reminder, please, if you've got any more questions, then please do pop them in the chat, and we'll make sure we've got enough time to address those and put those to our panelists. Tim, I really want to get this in before we finish up today. Why did Expedia Group launch One Key, and how do you see it ultimately in the future affecting the vacation rental industry as a whole?
I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, we're all about driving traveler and partner value. Generally, partner value is driven from that traveler value by us delivering the best travelers that book the earliest, that spend the most, that stay the longest, and respect your homes. And we did this because we viewed it as a differentiator for the traveler. Like that stat I said, 80% of people weren't earning any rewards. Not everybody's a power user that's going to be super sticky with a specific brand. And as such, we saw this as an opportunity to bring something special to travel, something unique to vacation rentals, and something that really helps us actually be the wrapper around a brand that's been built via mergers and acquisitions. Like, it was a way that we could actually have people have some degree of affiliation between Hotels.com and Expedia and the traditional vacation rental brands like Vrbo. So we're pretty excited about it.
Is there like a specific strategy that you have deployed or that you would advise others when it comes to driving loyalty?
Well, I think for a short-term rental operator, let us take care of the loyalty and the One Key stuff. Someday down the line, you never know if there's some sort of opportunity for somebody to opt into certain programs where people will earn and burn more. But the basics of loyalty for me, for a partner, are, well, continue to deliver the amazing 5-star experiences. You get a booking request, accept it. If you have a booking, never, ever cancel it. And then do all of the small touches of hospitality that people like Merilee and Ben do so well that gets you that 5-star review, which will probably bring you the next booking.
Thank you, Tim. Merilee, as CEO of Under the Doormat and Vive, what do you see within your own customer base that, as it relates to loyalty? Because you've touched on how you're sort of crossing into different verticals as well. Is it about attracting and retaining new customer segments?
So look, I mean, if we take the Vive brand, for example, where we operate, high-end properties in London and Paris, what we see is that, customers will come to us and they might find us on an OTA, and what they like is the experience that they get. We provide a more personal experience than they sometimes find in short-term rentals. And what we try and do is differentiate ourselves on the basis of that guest experience, the highest quality properties, obviously the best facilities, the best guest service all throughout the entire journey, so that anytime they come and stay in a Vive property, they're actually having, a 4 or 5-star experience, similar to what they would expect if they stayed in that type of hotel. And so I think for us, in many ways, that isn't going to change. We want to continue to differentiate as a brand and providing those stays and those experiences to the customers who are looking to pay a bit more for that high quality experience. But I think if we think about, for example, our Hosperia partners, we work with people at all different levels. I mean, they sometimes have 1 or 2-star properties, but they're run really efficiently and they're at the right price point for certain customers. And, on the tech side, our goal is to provide the right technologies and the right access to distribution and channels to market that help operators of property management companies or indeed real estate companies gain access to our market, and understand that actually any property which is unique, which might be sitting empty, is an opportunity to earn an income. And I think more and more we're going to see, again, that blending across real estate, individual owners, and the whole ecosystem, because my vision is ultimately that every property should be better utilized every day. And if we can do that, I actually think that it's going to create more opportunities for people to travel, more opportunities for cities to better utilize the spaces that already exist, and ultimately, as an industry, a chance to really help, even from a sustainability point of view, for us to be using assets in a much better way. So I think there's some huge opportunities there. And I think, coming back to the theme, loyalty is something that helps drive all of this to work in a much more efficient way and to identify some of the most valuable customers. So as a brand ourselves, that's something we value because, to Tim's point, we want the best guests. We want people that have seamless experiences, that value what we provide, and that, of course, give us great reviews and come back and stay with us again.
Thank you, Merilee. I'll turn next to Ben. And Ben, you highlighted something really important earlier, I think, about exposure. So is exposure what you care about most when you're considering loyalty and rewards programs, both as an independent brand and this unique stays operator that you mentioned?
I do think that it's probably my number one is exposure. It is, having people find out about us that otherwise wouldn't, having people book us that might otherwise, wouldn't have because they have points to burn. I do think that's my number one. In terms of booking with us and earning points, whether that's through One Key or, we've talked to boutique hotel points providers. There's a few of them out there and more coming. I think there's a benefit there as well, and I'd like to kind of see where that goes. Particularly for us, we'd like to find a points program that's really and a loyalty program that's very curated, almost more of like a soft brand, where there's all these unique stay type properties, very experiential. So if you like to stay in these kind of properties, whether you're coming to Texas or you're, going to New York or California, you can get presented with these kind of options. And maybe, Expedia Group, through Vrbo or Expedia, will be able to provide those recommendations as well. But I think that's something that's pretty important to us, because our guest by nature is kind of this like thrill seeker, adventure traveler. They want these one of a kind experiences. So, dirty little secret, we don't get as high of a repeat guest rate as an urban Marriott hotel that is servicing a business traveler that might be coming back, 20 times in the same year. So, I talk about this with other operators in the experiential hotel or experiential vacation rental space. A buddy of mine, Isaac French, started a landscape hotel in Waco right around the same time that I built Onera. And before he sold it and wasn't managing it anymore, we were talking about sharing our email lists and cross marketing, because a guest of his certainly would be interested in Onera if they didn't know about it, and vice versa. And we don't look at it as a zero-sum game. I mean, there's so few of our types of properties today and such high demand for it. Exposure is the most important thing.
Thank you, Ben. I remember we had Isaac on a previous webinar, so I'm sure perhaps we could go back and find that recording, but we'll have to do that at another point. Thank you, Ben.
Yeah.
I want to get in these questions before I get one last takeaway from each of our speakers. So we've had a question here from Mark Vass. Greetings from Porto. Panelists mentioned loyalty is about wanting to come back. I see how this works for larger brands, portfolios, to make it stick for customers. Can you expand on some of the benefits for a smaller individual manager or owner to offer a One Key member rate? So Tim, maybe that's best for you.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I think, so first of all, you brought up the member rates, which is something we really haven't talked about today. We've been talking mostly about the points that you can earn and burn, but there are additional benefits as part of being part of One Key. One of them is that we typically reduce our traveler service fee. So, there's something that we reduce in terms of some of our monetization. But one of the things that we are looking forward to rolling out next year for the traditional single unit vacation rental category is member only deals. And the reason that I think this is going to be valuable is it's another differentiator that partners can do to try to actually get the best travelers. And not, like I said, like, these are the best travelers that don't just make a booking. They're a traveler that you can put in your CRM and try to remarket to. One Key members by nature are going to be somebody that is going to be probably doing a fair amount of travel, maybe not like every week, a year type travel, but there's somebody that travels, more than a couple times a year. And as such, I think there's value in providing that 10% discount based on the quality of traveler that you're providing and what it might mean for you in the future in terms of getting that traveler to come back to your property.
Thank you, Tim. And another question from Michael. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Can loyalty between guests and the flat hosts be increased through improvements to internal processes in the preparation of facilities, e.g. by using housekeeping automation tools such as Guesty or Keep For You? One of our panelists would like to come in there.
I mean, look, I think always providing a good quality experience through, through good standards, and better, better servicing, is something which is going to add value. I mean, you know, when we look at reviews and things like that, cleanliness, as an example, is one of the key things that guests care about. And especially when they stay in unique properties, it's almost like they're hypersensitive to it, even in a way that they might not be in a hotel. And so everything that you can do, whether it's through automation, you know, through better scheduling, through, you know, the quality of the cleaners and the operations that you run, I think that's absolutely something that that will drive people to want to come back again and to leave better reviews so other guests come and stay with you. So I think that's a no-brainer. I'm not sure how automation itself is the goal. I think it is about the delivery and the execution, whatever format that takes. So that's my kind of 2 cents on that question.
Thank you, Merilee. I want to get something very quick from all of you before we finish, and it's one takeaway that the audience take away with them and implement tomorrow. So Ben, I'll start with you if you can quickly give your takeaway.
Yeah, takeaway when it comes to loyalty and rewards. I think that my big takeaway is that we're super early. So like, you know, I think that when we're early to something, which I think we are to loyalty programs for vacation rentals, you know, try to take advantage of it and be an early adopter, because typically early adopters are the ones that are rewarded the most. And the same goes for you as a traveler, right? Right now, your tiers are super easy to get, right? The higher tiers, when you look at it compared to like airlines or, you know, some of the bigger hotel brands, I mean, it can take, you know, just extraordinary amounts of travel to get to even like a mid-level status. And so, yeah, take advantage of it and get in early, and you'll kind of get outsized value.
Ben, Merilee?
Yeah, look, I think for me, the big opportunity is how vacation rentals can benefit from being part of this wider ecosystem. And, you know, how we can tap into that demand and ensure that customers who are coming for the very first time into our industry or staying with our brands have an amazing experience so that they want to keep coming back. And I think there's a big opportunity with this program and with loyalty becoming something that our industry is now able to talk about and deliver, that there is a big opportunity for us to capitalize on that and grow the number of bookings and the revenues that all of us are able to achieve. So I think exciting times for the industry as a result.
Thank you, Merilee. And Tim, I'll give the last word to you.
Yeah, I think for me, it would be try to start to understand what's going to be the next differentiator for your properties and your business. Because there's probably more supply than there's ever been on the market. And as such, it's very important that you're doing whatever it takes to stand out from the crowd. 5-10 years ago, most properties weren't instant bookable. What was yesterday's differentiator quickly becomes today's norm. So, you know, stay ahead of the curve and take advantage by being an early adopter, like Ben said. I think that the loyalty play could potentially be a big part of that.
Thank you, Tim, and a big thank you to all of our contributors today, to Tim, to Merilee, and to Ben. It's been fascinating talking to you and learning more about One Key as it broadens its horizons. We've got a couple of slides just to run through very quickly before we finish. Our next webinar is in partnership with Track on Tuesday, the 1st of October, and that's on discussing making market data the core of your innovation strategy. So we really hope you can join us then. The sign-up link is in the chat for you now. You can also check out all of the recordings for our previous webinars, and you can also connect with my colleague Sam, our head of growth, whose details are on screen to discuss all opportunities available. So this session is going to remain open for another 2 minutes with all of the details from the chat. I want to say a big thank you as well to Verbo, part of the Expedia Group, for sponsoring this webinar. Thank you again to all of our speakers, and most of all to all of you for tuning in today. Thank you very much, and we'll see you all again very soon. Cheers, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Hello,
Thanks, everyone.
we are International Hospitality Media, or IHM for short. IHM is the #1 brand to engage with decision makers in hospitality and real estate. Our 4 multimedia brands lead their respective sectors with breaking news, comments, trends, and opinions across a variety of multimedia solutions. We provide an inspirational community to connect people through world-class events, webinars, podcasts, award schemes, and much more. But let us share our story of who we are and what we do. Over 10 years ago, Piers and George had a light bulb moment to provide expert opinion, comments, and low-cost digital content. And so, they went on a journey over the past decade, creating media platforms to serve the hospitality and real estate industries. We now have an engaged audience with a reach of over 60,000 monthly visitors across our website, 52,500 in our email database across all sectors, and over 68,000 across our social channels. Everything we do challenges the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. We make things simple and very easy to work with us, and we're a friendly bunch too. We offer creative solutions to help you achieve your business goals. Read, watch, listen, and meet with IHM. Connect with us for a chat today. Just look at some of the brands we have worked with recently.